Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Branching Out. It's an anthology of poetry and story. Editors are Fiona Clark-Eklund and Jessica Brown. Now, the Limerick Writers Centre is delighted to be involved in this project. And just a brief word about it is the poetry, the volume comes from a course held not long ago, and we're launching that now. And the course that will result in Anthology serves as an artistic response to the challenges post-COVID times posed. They stand as a testament to the diverse journeys individuals undertook, demonstrating how they navigated, endured, thrived and coped during those testing periods. Within the anthology lies a reflection of collective resilience, offering readers a glimpse into the human spirit's remarkable capacity for growth and rejuvenation when faced with adversity. Contributors featured in the anthology will have the opportunity to share their work from the course during the event, and we extend a warm invitation to the public to join as well here anyway. Now, first out of the starting blocks, we'd like to introduce Dominic Taylor, Director of the Limerick Writers Centre. Dominic Taylor.
August Falteroy, Captain. We extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you tonight. Your presence here means a great deal to us, and we are truly grateful for your company. Tonight, we gather to celebrate the birth of something special, an anthology of literary work entitled Branching Out. I believe that this marks a significant cultural and artistic event, one that fills us with immense pride. It is our privilege to unveil this anthology here within the walls of the People's Museum of Limerick. This museum stands as a tribute to the ordinary lives of Limerick people, offering a unique space for contemplation and innovation. It is institutions like the People's Museum that deserves our unwavering support. At the Limerick Writers Centre, our mission revolves around nurturing a vibrant literary community. After every writing course, I'm left in awe at the remarkable work that emerges, a truly remarkable process. We envision the Limerick Writers Centre continuing to provide such enriching courses in the future and producing more books like the one we gather to launch here tonight, the aptly titled Branching Out. In these tumultuous times where we grapple with issues and challenges related to our well-being, this anthology serves as a beacon. It reminds us that the moment to explore new directions and experiences, to forge fresh vision that enriches our lives, is always now. With the release of this publication, we now boast 151 titles published since the inception of our community publishing project in 2009. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the contributors who have poured their talent into this anthology. I eagerly anticipate hearing some of your work performed later tonight. Furthermore, I extend my sincere thanks to the Midwest Regional Drug and Alcohol Forum, our generous sponsors, for their steadfast support of our creative writing endeavours throughout the years. A special word of appreciation goes to our long-time book designer, Lot Bender, whose exquisite cover designs have graced our publications for over a decade. So without further ado, I'll hand you back to Tom Muldowney, our MC, who will bring you through the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Don. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mick Lacey, who is the chairman of Midwest Regional Drug and Alcohol Forum. Mick Lacey.
Thank you, Tom. This is a wonderful presentation, and it's the third work that we did in partnership, the Midwestern Regional Drug and Health, with the Limerick Writers Group. Our first book, our anthology, was Voices from the Cave, and that emerged from on our drug awareness day. We were saying, how are we going to reach people without just giving them leaflets or speaking on the radio? So it was decided that we'd have a poetry competition, which was facilitated by Dominic, Martin O'Brien and judged and so on. And as a result of that, we produced a wonderful book, Voices from the Cave, and it was a huge success. And that went national because the task force, we cover Limerick, North Tipperary and Clare, but we're also linked in with all the other task forces. The second work was Anthology, was poems from the prison.
Free voice.
Free Voices, which was a wonderful work, very successful and was very popular. And it gave voice to people who were in prison. This is a wonderful one, again, branching out, again, done in partnership with Dominic and the task force. So we're very proud of it, and must congratulate Fiona Clark, actually, Jessica Brown, and of course Dominic for the work they put into this. And now I'd just like to introduce Tom's Philomena Carroll, who's a project worker. She'll tell you more about the work of the task force. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here this evening. It's a pleasure to get the invite. So I'll just kind of give you a synopsis in relation to our work. I'm a development worker with the Drug and Alcohol Forum. Our former name was the Midwest Regional Drug Task Force, but many years ago, as a response from the public, we did change our name to the Drug and Alcohol Forum. We're one of many in the country, and basically we coordinate the drug and alcohol services in the Midwest. My role, I work closely with the community, basically hearing the voices of people that have been affected directly or indirectly by substance misuse. Originally, when Dominic and Mick put out the invite in 2017, we sat down, myself and my line manager at the time, Garrow Prendergast, we sat down, and Dominic and Mick put out the idea of having poetry involved in our line of work, and from the get-go I thought it was a really good idea. It just gave people an option to really be able to express what they were going through, put it in poetry, put it in writing, and I suppose it was something that we didn't do before, it was new. And I suppose we're very lucky that we're one of many few forums or task forces in the country to still be able to provide an education bursary. So I suppose that's where we came into it then. We encouraged Dominic, the Limerick Writers' Centre, to apply to the education bursary to finance the original one in 2017, the Voices from the Cave. And again, that was really popular. We had much response, fantastic response. And again, we were delighted in 2018 to be part of it when it came to the Free Voices, the piece of work done in Limerick Prison, and another fantastic opportunity to allow prisoners to really put into writing poetically how their experiences were, how they ended up in prison, different backgrounds, different walks of life. It was just really good to read. And again, tonight I'm so happy to be here and be part of the branching out, and again giving people an opportunity post-COVID to write about their experiences. It was a long time, you know, it was very different for many people, and I haven't read the anthology yet. I'm looking forward to actually sitting down tonight and reading it, and I'd just like to congratulate each and every one of you. So thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Philomena. And now I'd like to introduce the editors of Branching Out, Fiona Clark Eklund and Jessica Brown.
Liam, Joe, Nicola, Claire, Gray, Patrick, Ray, Teresa, Catherine, Nuala, Tom, Derry and John. When I'm going to be looking at this book on my bookshelf, I will be remembering the very, very special workshops that we had in February, what it was like to meet each one of you, hear your stories, listen to your voice, watch you craft the poems. It was absolutely a privilege to be in the room with you, and I just want to congratulate each and every one of you.
And I'll second that. It was a hugely enjoyable encounter, and I have seldom seen in such a diverse group of people. It was like we gave you a prompt and you were voracious in taking it up, and the enthusiasm of that group comes out in this writing. I'm very proud of it. It's just so, metaphorically speaking, really, it was how you took up those cues, how you took up the prompts and just got down with it, and here it is, the result of it. I hope you're very proud of yourselves. Well done.
Thank you very much, Fiona and Jessica. Now, without further ado, we'll have some of the contributors, and I'll just call them out. First, we have Mr. Joe Coleman.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you to Dominic and Fiona and Jessica for the wonderful workshop back in February. I really enjoyed it. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I have dabbled in writing for a while, and when it came to one of the projects in that excellent workshop, I went right back to childhood. And maybe this is not a great boast to say that I have had 3 supernatural experiences in my life. I selected one for the book because the other 2 would have cleared the room. This is the entity in the bedroom, and I tried to tell this from a child's perspective as opposed to an adult thinking back to 1967. But on page 6, it was about 10 o'clock on a cold, dark winter's night in 1967. My bedroom was situated at the back of the house overlooking the garden. There wasn't a sound to be heard. Suddenly, the room started to spin around, and a few distorted voices sounded in both my ears. The spinning increased for several seconds and then stopped suddenly. I cried out. My mother came into the room and I told her what had happened, and she brought me downstairs. She could see that I was trembling. I told her what was after happening, and she brought me out to our neighbour's house where Mrs. Sheehan lived. Mrs. Sheehan was a lady of about 70 years and was always good to listen and offer advice. Mrs. Sheehan formed the opinion that the event was possibly caused by a reaction of some sort to an incident that might have occurred, and that it was my subconscious mind taking over. After returning to my room, my mother came in and sprinkled some holy water. After a few moments, the voices returned in my head, but later stopped. Some years later, I experienced the whole episode again, but only once. It never occurred after that. My mother used to say that the area where we lived was haunted, going right back hundreds of years to troubled times, and always advised me and my siblings to pray for the poor holy souls who might be trapped in purgatory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe Coleman. Now we have Greg Duff.
Thanks very much. It's a great honour and pleasure to be here, and I'm thankful to the Limerick Writers Group for being part of what's happening here tonight, and particularly to Fiona and Jessica for making everyone at ease, and hence the contributions. As you can hear from the voice, I'm not from Limerick, so this will explain everything. The piece that I'm going to read here tonight is called The Year of the Sputnik. It was in 1956.
Page 3.
Pardon?
Page.
Oh, sorry, page 12. It's right on my wife should come in.
Oh, yes.
It was in 1956, the year of the Hungarian Rising, that my father bought in Guineas of Toggle Street a heavy black Crombie with 2 large pockets and a heavy buckled belt. Napoleon on his retreat from Moscow, or Hitler's crew at the gates of Stalingrad, would have been glad to have a Crombie like his to face Russia's Siberian winters. The Russians had launched their Sputnik in space with a dog called Laika aboard. Latin, although not the spoken medium of the majority in Stony Batter, where we lived, was used in mass. Charles McQuaid, autocratic Catholic Archbishop of Dublin, was in power. Senior politicians and former tough revolutionary gunmen were all afraid of him. Guinness barges went up and down the Liffey, their funnels lowered as they approached the bridges. My father faced many bitter winters cycling to and from our terraced dwelling in Stony Batter to Carl's printing factory in Parkgate Street. His only stop was at a shop on Oxmantown Road on payday, where he bought the topper, the beano and a package of woodbines for the man. At a family board meeting in 1960, with my Tipperary granny in the chair, it was unanimously decided that a contract would be given to Pettigrew and Son, master tailors, to resurrect from the Crombie a new overcoat for myself. Their workshop was on the 4th floor of a tenement house in Blackhall Place. It was possible then to buy a package of fags for a few pence. The pennies had a hen on them, and 6 of them would get you into the Tivo in Francis Street, or the Fino on the Quays, whose proper title was the Phoenix Picture Palace. Most of the older lads had joined Forza Cosanta Atul, more commonly known as the FCA, or to the more disrespectful class as the Free Clothes Association. After school one day, I was collected by a small military detachment made up of my Tipperary granny and my mother. At a military pace that would do credit to the Royal Dublin Fusiliers, I was frog marched down to Blackhall Place to be measured up by the Pettigrews for a new overcoat, which was to rise like the phoenix from my father's Crombie. As instructed a few days later, I called to the Pettigrews and collected a parcel which was wrapped in heavy brown paper and tied with strings. When I got home, the parcel was quickly unwrapped and I was told to put on the new creation. As I paraded in front of the family, I was conscious of the look of horror on my mother and grandmother's face. The tailoring skills of the Pettigrews and their ancestors were questioned, and I was told that the next day after school, I, along with my mother and grandmother, would be returning with the parcel to demand justice from the Pettigrews. The following day after school, our small party set out. Climbing to the top stairs would normally challenge the fittest of people, but on this occasion, my family went up the stairs 2 at a time, like they were part of a commando assault. On entering the workshop, the Pettigrews seemed startled, more than frightened. But when my grandmother questioned their tailoring skills and heritage, all hell broke out. My new coat, which was on the wooden counter, became the subject of a tug-of-war between the senior Pettigrew and my granny. The younger members of the family eventually restored peace on the battlefield, and it was agreed that the necessary adjustments would be made to the coat, and I would collect it the following day. Sinead, I have to say that my memory is, as a child, the sleeves went down, that if I was a chimp, it would have fitted me. Thanks very much.
Some eloquent memories there from Greg Duff. Patrick Glynn.
Hi everyone, and can I also thank Fiona and Jessica and Dominic for this opportunity. My piece is on page 16 and it's called The Apple's Side of the Story. Jenny the pink apple sits on the table. Her skin has started to decay. Her will to live has started to wane. Ever since her better half was taken away from her. It wasn't always like this. Jenny fondly remembered growing up in Australia, hanging gently from her dear mother Isabel's branches. A gentle breeze, a temperature of 18 degrees. Feeling so secure, surrounded by all her brothers and sisters. Then one day this peaceful existence was shattered. From down country lane, a loud clunking thump could be heard. It sent a vibration through the orchard, shaking the poor apples to their core. Dust from the wheels of these monsters soon filled the orchard. One by one, the large trucks entered. People descending from each one. All appeared to be in high spirits. Each one carried a large basket. They moved along from tree to tree, picking Jenny's brothers and sisters as they went from the branches, putting them into their baskets, then putting them onto the trucks. Finally they came to Jenny, removing her carefully as not to damage her. They put her into the basket with her brothers and sisters. They were loaded onto the truck, taken from the orchard to who knows where. So began the terrifying trip for Jenny, the little pink apple, to where it has brought her to sit on a table where her skin has started to decay since her half was taken away. Since her other half was taken away, when earlier they had breathed life.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Now we have Ray Hitchens.
These mics get in the way. They have to be there. I'd first like to thank both Fiona and Jessica immeasurably, because they were sort of almost guardian angels of this exercise, and completely invaluable to everything that was done here for everyone, really. Certainly for what was done for me. I'd also like to thank my gorgeous sister and my gorgeous nephews and niece. Two of them are here. So I'm going to read this, and I'm going to read this for everyone, because that's why everyone's here. And it has a sort of an Irish theme, and I'll read it. Lighthouse Arons. I spent, it was dedicated to my wonderful sister Colette. I spent a night in an Aran lighthouse, once upon a broken rhyme. The seas were crashing wave by wave, and the only man left was time. And in the heart of the night, alone she walks, on the edge of a knife, and the soul in stillborn storms lost and fused. Everything is the taking of a life for a life. And I stayed that night in an Arran lighthouse as the wind she whips the skies, and I prayed for the morning dawn of sun, bittersweet soulmates of salvation before one dies. I spent a night in an Arran lighthouse once upon a broken wing. The clouds had fallen from the heavens, the bells were muted, that they could not sing. I spent a night in an Arran lighthouse, between broken ships and the dead of night, between those lost, drowning souls and angels born of light. Yes, I spent a night in an Arran lighthouse. I listened to the wrath like sea, and one spends a night in an Arran lighthouse, the heart in an elusive soul can ne'er but be free. And on that night in an Arran lighthouse I breathed again a sweet breath of mine. And on that night in an Arran lighthouse I found her love divine. Sorry for the
Lisa Hogan.
Just to say thanks to Dominic, and thanks also to Jessica and Fiona, and just to tell you I just loved being in the group back in February. I can't believe it's so long ago, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to read Reach for the Skies on page 23. It's the very first time I've written flash fiction. Walking the long narrow path surrounding the rapid flowing river, Stella is lost in thought. Having dropped her children to school, she relishes this time with Freddie every morning. Freddie is always happy to be with her and never objects to this leisurely time together. He prefers being out, maybe having the odd run of freedom himself, but never going too far away from Stella, always returning after a sharp burst as if to check she's okay. Stella loved this softness of him, saying as much whenever he returned. They'd walk side by side in silence, never needing much conversation, the odd eye contact, the odd look of love and understanding. Always seemed to be enough between them, then complete contentment. Stella wished home life was like this. She didn't understand where the good times had gone, the fun, the joy, the companionship. She didn't expect excitement every day, but this emptiness, this moroseness, this she can't even fathom what this barrenness, when this barrenness set in, when the dancing stopped, or why neither of them noticed, putting out a hand to say, let's dance. They loved each other once, they loved each other passionately once, and now it all seems so futile. She was very sure they both showed great care and devotion to the children. This at least made her thoughts somewhat easier, but the emptiness. She tried to take in the beauty around her. She usually enjoyed watching as the tall trees reached for the skies as they did their morning exercise, breathing in and out, in tune with the wind or swaying as if in a dance final. Sometimes linking with the one beside him to complete that last waltz. That's it, Stella imagined. That's it. It's time for a last waltz. In her freedom she called, "Freddie, come here." Excitedly he rushed back and lunged into her outstretched arms. "Let's dance," she whispered. He nuzzled her neck with his soft, gentle face. She holds him tighter, tighter, dancing, swirling, all the time enchanted by her decision. She tenderly released Freddie, saying, "You stay here, my love." Hanging his lead from a nearby tree, she danced into the melody of the flowing water, and without looking back, without hesitation, knowing her decision to be heavenly, she takes her final bow.
Teresa Hogan. Now we have Tom McGilligan.
Thanks, Tom. Like the previous readers, special thanks to Fiona and Jessica and Tom, Pat are always at these occasions, and especially Dominic. Without Dominic, I don't think any of us, I've seen him over a number of years. He mentioned earlier that it's 151 occasions, which I think is something special.
Yes.
So I'm going to read, it's not too long. We spoke about the COVID and the rest of it, and sometimes you'd be in a certain place, you might think of something. In this case, I was at the dentist, and so this is where Wheatley and me turned up. There was no denial that I was a sweet alcoholic, an incurable coffee grinder, but once chocolate for everlasting, like a cow chewing the cud. When one had deep-rooted with, acquainted with, or let's say attached to somebody or something for decades, a sudden change could be traumatic, and it was. And that's the way matters were between Wheatley and me. We'd been together for a lifetime, during which we had chomped our way through thick and thin. Never having been a taker of great care, peace-wise, proved to be Wheatley's undoing. Belatedly I say this as I rolled my tongue over my tender gum. I grieved for his loss and was concerned by the inhibitive costs of his removal and subsequent replacement. With hindsight, all this would have taken to keep Wheatley was a visit to the dentist when it was required. But no, due to my culpable carelessness, I didn't do it. And of course there was the cost factor, for which I was even more concerned. Too late, I'm afraid. I felt sorry for poor Wheatley, who was destined to be pulled and dumped into a tooth waste bin. My propensity to gratify my sweet tooth was regular and sometimes downright reckless. By that I mean polishing off a bag of toffee mix in a session or devouring chocolate with free abandon. When the first sign of a twinge of pain arrived, I decided to hold back in the sweets and indulge in the sweetness of a different and healthier variety. Much to my surprise, a shiny green Granny Smith apple seemed to kick off the problem. Up to that, Wheatley and I had been doing great. On an evening of no great consequence, rather than submit to the craving for chocolate, I took a fancy to a Granny Smith apple. When I bit into it, the pain was excruciating. This surprised me because Wheatley, who had lived on the bottom row, was large and sharp and stature and as strong as the tooth of a crocodile. Next day, my worst thoughts became a reality. From a nudge of my index finger, I felt Wheatley. He was doing a wobble, a little bit like an unsteady drunken man, tottering about, a sway to and fro followed. In a visit to the bathroom mirror, I couldn't resist nudging him again, confirming time and again that Wheatley was loose and under the weather. Going to the dentist I did not consider at the time, until a further vicious pain from Wheatley shot up my jaw. It spurred me into action. I cursed my luck and made my appointment with dentist Oliver. Money of costs had not crossed my mind. So how are we, said dentist Ollie, we, meaning Wheatley and me. I opened my gob, put my finger on Wheatley, and motioned him hither and thither. Dentist Ali eyeballed Wrigley at first, and then, with a cringe, grimace and raised eyebrow, sighed aloud. He delivered the breaking news with the solemnity with which an undertaker might convey sorrow to a bereaved person for the loss of a loved one. "Sorry, not good being frank with you. This tooth of yours has had it," said Dentist Ali. Wrigley and me were about to be separated, but my thought process kicked in, starting a question and answer. "And what about the gaping hole following Wrigley's departure?" I inquired from Dentist Ali. "You win some and lose some," he said, with an element of an indifference in his eye. "And might there be any hope of his survival, I wondered?" He answered with a vague shake of his head before saying, "Unlikely. Perhaps a plate or maybe a bridge would do for a replacement." "And would that be expensive?" I asked. "A couple of hundred for the plate, or maybe £2,000 for the bridge," he said, without putting a tooth in it. I was not expecting such a hefty expense. We'll cross that bridge later, I thought, and nudged the tottering Wrigley again. An element of doubting Thomas crept in, and he'd been bitten by the cost factor. Before leaving, I hadn't a pain or a twinge at that moment, while my resting, empty pocket had taken notice of the costly bridging proposal. So you could build a bridge across the Shannon for that, I thought. Wrigley and I were at the crossroads of an expensive decision. What was I to do? Leave him to wobble, tuck him out, leave a gaping hole and a gap as a reminder of him, or go for it and bridge that expensive gap? "Dentist Ali," I said before pausing. "Yes, my man, what will it be?" he said, with the cash register ringing up the bill in his eyeballs. "In fact, if you wouldn't mind, I think I'd never think about it. I knew a friend at Dentist Ali knew he'd be back in a return visit in no time. He had that assured look about him that I would be returning. So off we went, Wrigley and me, as we passed Tootsie's sweet and coffee shop. I couldn't resist going in there. What with the stress and tension I suffered in the dentist chair, I needed a sweetener. Coffees it would be, until I thought of the fragility of poor Wrigley. "Could I have a bag of soft marshmallows, please?" I said. The shop assistant gave me a questionable look, as if saying, "What else would you get from a marshmallow or a soft sweetness?" "Sorry," I grinned and said, "just coming from the dentist. Don't know what I was thinking about, thank you." Wrigley and I returned home. I devoured the marshmallows in one session without giving a thought to the welfare of poor Wrigley. The pain soon returned. Wrigley was crying out for relief, and he got it. Next morning we were back at the dentist. I sat in the waiting room opposite 3 old men. The first lad had a big gummy smile, which did not inspire any confidence in me with Dentist Ali. The second lad's false teeth rattled like the clappers, while the third fella broke 2 enormous buck teeth that were as yellow as a pissy bit. "Good morning, my good man. I guess you will be back," said Dentist Ali in an authoritative tone. I sat in the dentist's chair and got the numbing injection and waited. Dentist Ali removed Wrigley with the minimum of fuss and effort. For the last time, I glanced a sentimental look at Wrigley, who was languishing in a kidney bowl. I left and walked up the street and went straight into Tootsie's Sweet and Coffee Shop. Wrigley's loss was soon past. It didn't take very long for the new tooth and expensive bit to arrive. Without a care in the world, I was eating coffees by the bag for as good as ever with my new fox tooth.
That awesome orthodontic delight. It was brought from the irrepressible Mr. McGilligan. Anyway, finally, Jesus, yes, John McKay.
Like others, I'd like to thank Dennis, Dominic, and the editors for helping me keep my words in print. So I hope it doesn't disappoint. This one is called Going Online. Lisa had all the facts, all the dates, names, and research in her folder. She was ready to go online and start the course. Lisa had been reading and writing and reading, telling all who would listen about the new ambition to be in all of this. Now she was ready for her computer course. Her nephew told her to be quite logical and enter everything step by step into the computer. He also said it would be very easy and all the steps would be explained to her. So, good. Lisa sat in the library at the screen and keyboard. The lovely young lady helped her to sign on and bring up the first page of the website. Here goes, she thought. First name, surname, password, address, phone number. But this was not what she wanted. Lisa only wanted to tell the computer her name was Lisa, that she was a pensioner who desperately wanted to do the genealogy course. This was just too much. She packed up her things and left.
Finally, we have one more reader, Claire Donner.
Hello everybody. First, thanks so much to Fiona and to Jessica. It was such a pleasure to be part of this group. And particularly thanks to Dominic. Just to have the opportunity, I'd say, I joined the Limerick Writers Centre about a decade ago, and it has completely changed my life. And I met so many new people and witnessed so many different things. But I can clearly remember tonight, the first night I was published in a book, and I was so proud. And I know that the people here tonight, this is their first time published in a book, so I hope they feel proud. What page am I on?
9.
Sorry. I hadn't really planned on reading, I just thought it might be nice to say that. On glasses. This was just a short piece. We were asked to remember things that we liked as a child. It's page 9, yeah, it's called Precious. Miniature teacups, the largest of marbles, blowing bubbles, quotations from books, charms on a bracelet, cuttings from magazines, tap dancing, a euphony of words, melodious choirs. All these sate my desires. From what, as a child, I derived pleasure, these things today I truly treasure. And just one last piece. I was talking to Dominic on the way in. This last piece called Broken Glass is what's called a haiku, which I never knew what it was, but apparently this is one. And I said, I can't read that because it's only one sentence, and he said, read it twice. Broken glass. Playing marbles gave her pleasure. Now she has lost them. Playing marbles gave her pleasure. Now she has lost them.
There you have it. Well, this has been the launch of Branching Out. It's an anthology of poetry and story. Anybody who leaves this emporium without a copy, well, it'll be a very pleasant surprise what will happen here. I say no more. Free bread you got our LPs on a loop. Anyway, some other business, housekeeping we call it. On Friday in this very emporium, we're going to have the book launch of Greg Carey's debut collection of poetry. Same back station and same back channel. Moving into the theatre at this very venue on Monday evening at 7 o'clock, we have from America an evening with Mark Twain, presented by Robert Alvey. 7 o'clock, an evening with Mark Twain next Monday evening. All I can say is now, gentle readers and listeners, keep writing, keep reading, keep talking, keep living, writing.
Can you sit there?
Yeah, okay, can everybody be seen?
Be seen for long.
Great.